Hello, my wonderful people, and welcome back to the Unqualified Wisdoms podcast, your one-stop shop for glorified hot takes on societal and cultural discussions. Now, you'll most likely have noticed that I went on a bit of a long hiatus. Let's say it like that. It was a hiatus. To be exact, it's probably been about it's nearing 3 months. It's probably already been 3 months. By the time I'm recording this, it's been around 2.5 months, but probably by the time I upload this and everything else, it's been 3 months. And I had originally intended to start uploading more short form episodes under, around the 20-minute mark. I don't want to, bore you guys for too long. And I wanted to do shorter, more compact episodes with a more consistent upload schedule. And, with the occasional longer format upload, like my previous hour-long episodes. And as I've said multiple times before, I believe, this podcast is supposed to be a creative outlet for me to, de-stress from real life and, talk about topics that I find interesting. But when I started writing down ideas and topics I wanted to talk about, and then I start creating scripts that I want to read for the episodes themselves, I noticed I had never really started to finish a script. And it's not for lack of work. I have a list of 30 plus topics that I want to talk about. But, when I start writing a script, I never end up wanting to stop adding content to the script that I'm writing. I always want to add more details because I want to have the most complete possible script, have all the information possible. Because I feel like the topics I've chosen to begin with have been somewhat heavier discussions that I often want to have enough information backing me up so I don't say anything completely wrong or I don't make any major grave mistakes. But oftentimes we're people, we make mistakes. So I have to, try to balance that with my own desire to have the most complete content out there. You never want to be misunderstood for what you're trying to say. And I feel especially for topics as heavy as the ones I touched on, I don't want to be misunderstood or misconstrued and people taking, the words out of my mouth and trying to redirect what I was trying to say. But you could say that what I was trying to do is my ambition was to produce the most accurate, high quality content as possible. You see, seamless episode title integration. Truly masterfully done on my part. Okay, please don't actually turn off the episode. I know that was cringe, but I had to somehow integrate what I wanted to talk about in my little intro monologue. But yeah, no, as I mentioned, I've been away for a long period of time, and over this extended period of time, I've been thinking a lot about my goals in life, because I've had a lot of time to think about my own future, and it's been, this last year has been very hectic in making decisions and what I want to do and where I want to take everything I've been doing and what I want to achieve. I've had to make a lot of big decisions about my future and my life. And that led me to think a lot about, my ambitions for the future. And more so than just ambition in and of itself, my ambitions for the future. Rather, I feel like I've been thinking a lot about the concept of being ambitious. And I feel like it's such an abstract idea because when you look at ambition, the word in and of itself, I have a Cambridge Dictionary definition of the word. Ambition is primarily defined as a strong wish to achieve something, whatever it may be. And I feel like ambition as a whole, from a societal standpoint, nowadays is oftentimes associated with grandeur, with those grand ideals, these grand dreams that we want to achieve. And oftentimes we don't look at ambitious people as wanting to achieve, those smaller goals in life. It always has to somehow be something grand, like a grand achievement, a position, something that oftentimes is visible to the outside. And what that leads us to do is that we oftentimes believe that ambition has to require an extreme dedication to something. You know, we associate that oftentimes with that extreme dedication to concepts such as I'm going to go out on a limb here and assume people that are online often have heard about the concept of hustle culture. We oftentimes see that on Twitter and on YouTube. You'll occasionally be on YouTube, and if you don't use AdBlock or pay the whatever it is, $17.99 a month to have YouTube Premium, you'll stumble across some ads that are very interesting to say the least. You'll have these like people that define themselves as lifestyle gurus, and they'll be like, earn $600,000 in only 1 year. You can do it. I can do it. And then they'll have these like aspirational. They'll have like a Lamborghini behind them for some reason. They'll be like, I bought this car within 2 months of starting this job. Just text me. You can be ambitious and you can have a dream. And those types of ads, oftentimes you come across those, and to varying degrees, they have all these like different types of approaches to like try to get you in, and then like try to rope you in and be like, if you work hard, you're gonna have these like, if you dedicate everything in your life and you hustle, I hate that word. I hate the word hustling, but that might just be a me thing. If you dedicate everything and you work, and literally you work 24/7, you never stop, you're gonna achieve something. And then I feel like oftentimes these are usually scams, but oftentimes people, especially on Twitter, post things like, at 18 I was doing XYZ, I was in a rough spot in my life, and then I started hustling, and now I'm 21 and I own my own house and I have a car and like everything else. Future Luca here. This is more of an afterthought that came to me after I started editing this podcast episode. Talking about the normalization of these types of hustle 24/7 type situations. A lot of companies can take advantage of this, because it becomes normalized and people just expect that that's what they're supposed to do. So they just fall easier into situations where companies overwork them or they demand too much of them. And that just becomes part of our societal expectations of work and how we work. And so we see a lot of boomer comics talking about how they dedicate their entire lives to their job and it's more important than anything else. And I feel like that's something we should be aware of. The fact that our portrayal of ambition is this super hardworking, dedicate everything to your job and your position, that can 100% lead to people being taken advantage of in the workplace. So that is a consideration a lot of people have to have in the back of their mind when they think about this portrayal of ambition in media, in social networks, in content they consume. So that's just an afterthought I had. I'll give you back to past me. And I feel like oftentimes that's what people portray as ambition, as having that drive. I'm going to be saying drive a lot. I feel like ambition and the concept of having drive go hand in hand. I feel like those two are very like deeply rooted and connected. So I'm going to be talking about drive a lot, and trying to find a definition for drive as well as highly complex. I feel like everybody has their own definition of what drive is. But if I was to make my own little definition up on the spot, I'd say drive is the motivation to pursue something without seeing immediate results. I feel like that's a way to define drive. But going back on hustle culture and how we oftentimes associate that with the concept of being ambitious, I feel like there has been a generational evolution now from that being a very prevalent mindset in Gen X, but also in a good chunk of millennials. I feel like oftentimes just defining by, generational situations is very hard to say because everybody is a diverse human being and we don't all adhere to like generational concepts and stereotypes, etc. But I feel like specifically time-wise, from a time standpoint, hustle culture affected a lot of younger Gen X and a lot of older millennials. I feel like those were the people that were really like at the cusp of being in the right age group to see these like hustle culture things, especially millennials in general, because I'd say most of them were like in university in the early 2010s and late 2000s, that specific period of time. So they were there when like hustle culture started to really boom. But I feel like when we're moving along, this new generation, younger millennials that are now in their late 20s, very early 30s, and also older Gen Z Zoomers, I feel like they've now approached this look at hustle culture and this like association with having to work yourself to death pretty much to be ambitious as something that is a toxic mindset, because I feel like what the overall zeitgeist and what people want is to have a greater work-life balance, or even move towards a concept where work doesn't define us, and you have much more of a mindset that work is simply supposed to give you opportunities to pursue your own dreams and ambitions outside of work in your spare time with the people you care most about and your family and stuff like that. I feel like we're moving away from the concept of ambition being very deeply tied with status, with work, with positions, with education. And we're working towards ambitions being something that is wholly disconnected from these like tangible material things, and also externally validated things such as hierarchical positions, things such as that. And already talking about ambition and the concept of being ambitious, ambition might not even be the exact thing I want to like touch on with all I'm saying. I just feel like it's the closest to what I'm trying to get across in one word I could get, and that would be ambition. Because I feel like oftentimes what we look at when we talk about these types of concepts of self-worth, our future goals, how we interact with society, how society views us, and what we want to achieve, what we want to desire, what we dream of. What I'm talking about encapsulates so much more than just ambition. It's about your dreams, your aspirations, your desires. I think it all just it encapsulates all things relating to looking at one's own future, one's own goals, those like really anything and everything that relates to working towards a certain objective. Anything that we're putting work towards so that we at one point can be happy with what we've achieved. Not to quote cheesy movie lines, but sometimes it's genuinely about the journey and the friends we made along the way. Because I think over time, ambition, dreams, aspirations, all those things, they shift for people. It's not a static thing. With more experiences, with more time, oftentimes what we want to achieve, what we dream about, starts shifting and moving along. Like, I can confidently say that the dreams I had when I was like 10 years old do not at all correspond with the dreams I now hold as a 24-year-old. Those dreams don't really like go hand in hand, because I've lived through life. I've had these lived experiences that have shifted my focus, my goals, what I want to achieve. And I've also over, even if on a smaller time scale, I feel like oftentimes we think that at 18, we have now reached a point at what we know what we want to do with our lives. Or at least that's what's told to us, because at 18, oftentimes that's the point where you finish your secondary education and you have to decide, where do I want to go with my life? So I feel like that's a very pivotal point in your life where you have to make big decisions. And that's a pretty small time scale for me, because that's only been 6 years, and 6 years is not a whole lot of time. So when I look back at what I wanted to achieve at 18 and what I wanted to achieve now, I can most definitely tell you right now that we have completely different objectives as people. 18-year-old Luke and 24-year-old Luke have completely different like goals and aspirations and those types of things, because I've not just matured to look at what in life makes me happy, what I want to reinforce in my life. I've become a much more well-rounded person because I feel that with the opportunity to really like experience a lot of things in your adulthood, you get all these like great experiences to like shift your ideas about life in general. It's not only just about, getting that high paying job and being able to travel around the world. It's also about, I love my family dearly. Having the opportunity to be with my family, be closer to people I love. I want to have those things in my life. Well, at 18, I might not have thought as deeply about those types of things. So I feel like oftentimes these small invisible things that we don't really think about on a daily basis can really shift how we look at the grander picture of things. We often relegate those invisible tiny little things to not being worth enough to be considered part of our ambitions. We often have these like small little changes we would like to make about ourselves, but we oftentimes neglect them because we're trying to achieve something bigger, or at least that's what we tell ourselves. Oftentimes, achieving those bigger goals requires you to break down everything you want to do in much, much, much smaller, tiny little steps that you're going to be, interacting with on a daily basis. You're not going to change from day to night into something you've not been before. You're not going to achieve the dream of, I'm not even going to narrow it down. You're not, most of the time, about 100% of the time, probably 99.9% of the time, you're not going to achieve your dream overnight. Let's be realistic. Most people are not going to become famous overnight, those types of things. You're not going to become a multi-millionaire overnight. Obviously, there are exceptions, but most of the time, those dreams, those achievements, blah, 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 they require you to break everything down and try to create these like steps you want to take. As I said, ambition can come in many forms. That breaking down your big challenge into small chunks and tackling them one at a time, that can be ambitious. But I feel like you can also be ambitious by trying to break small habits in your daily life that you want to change to improve yourself in your own eyes. It might be a small habit of drinking too much coffee. You drink 7 cups of coffee a day, and you're like, okay, I can see that this is not affecting me positively. I might get the jitters, blah, blah, blah. And you want to break that habit of drinking that amount of coffee. Most people will look at that and be like, is breaking that habit being ambitious? And I would most definitely tell that person, yes, I do believe that can be considered ambitious, because we normalize these behaviors in our own life. It becomes our norm, our everyday life, to do something that way, and trying to break a habit that has been established over a very long period of time, that isn't easy. Going cold turkey on something is never going to be easy. So I say that, changing those small things about yourself can most definitely be ambitious. And I feel this rings true most definitely in situations relating to people that are dealing with their own mental health. And that's a subject I really enjoy talking about, because I've had to deal with my mental health a lot over the last 2 years that we've been in this pandemic. Thinking about what's happening inside your own head is exhausting. I can tell you that from personal experience. Trying to figure everything out and try to take all those steps required for you to at least start visualizing the issues you want to tackle. Because dealing with your mental health is a lifelong path that you have to take. You're not going to just from one day to the next be cured. Your mental health is something that you'll have to continuously work with and work towards improving, because you're going to have one bad day and that could cause a relapse, or you're going to have an extended period of time where you're doing great and just something happens and it clicks and boom, you're back at square one. So it's always about creating those routines, creating those habits to try to improve your mental health in the long run. So I feel like when you look at ambition, dealing with your own mental health is one of the most ambitious things I feel like people can do, because it requires long-term commitment. It's not just about, going and getting medication once. It's about being proactive in the way you tackle the situation in of itself. Look for other ways. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, because oftentimes that's not going to help you. When you're in a depressive slump, so let's take that as an example. You're, at the peak of your depression, and you don't feel like getting out of bed, you don't have any energy, you don't have the desire to do anything. You absolutely lack any and all desire to do anything, achieve anything. You're pretty much just existing. And I've personally experienced that often enough. And when you're feeling that you're close to rock bottom, or you might even feel like you're at rock bottom, and in that moment you decide to do something like take a bath, clean up, cook a meal, or just go outside, something you haven't done for an extended period of time, I feel like that shows such drive and ambition, because pretty much your brain is telling you that you do not want to do anything, you don't want to achieve anything, you just want to exist, and you consciously counteract that, and you consciously decide, no, I want to break this cycle, and I want to do something, even the smallest, tiniest thing. That requires so much drive and ambition, because you know that you're counteracting every natural instinct you're having in that moment. And that is such a big achievement, in my opinion. And I feel like that also ties in, into what it means to be ambitious, what we mean when we talk about ambition. And I want to take that back to like what I feel like oftentimes our society paints as ambition, and that's oftentimes associated. We have where do we hear people talking about ambition the most? I feel like personally where I most often encounter the words ambitious people or ambition is in job applications, job postings, and also when it comes to higher education. Those are the situations I feel like we talk about ambition the most. It's something you'll see an employer or an educational institution say that they want their applicants, their workers, their students, they want them to have ambition. They want them to be ambitious people. But what does it really mean? What are they trying to say when they say that they want ambitious students, employees, or applicants? Do they want somebody that will sacrifice everything to achieve a certain goal? Because that can be ambitious. Do they want somebody that continuously challenges themselves to improve or change? Because that most certainly can be someone that's ambitious. Or do they want somebody with a clear goal? That could be an ambition. I most certainly can't give you an answer to what they're looking for, because I've never been in that position where I ask somebody, are you ambitious? Because I feel like the question of itself is so empty. Because anybody can say that they're ambitious. They can spin a story, tell you about this grand dream that they're working towards. But seeing real ambition is so hard, because it's so intangible in a sense. I feel like talking about ambition in of itself is so complex to actually prove that you're ambitious, because ambition is very internal for me. I feel like ambitious people internalize a lot of things, and they want to do things for themselves without having to project outwards that they're ambitious or driven or anything like that. Oftentimes people around them can tell that they're ambitious, but that's just from the outside peering in. You don't actually know what's happening inside a person's mind to really know if they're ambitious. And that just goes back to talking about how ambitions and goals oftentimes are something we attribute to external things that are visible or tangible or things we can see. And I feel like that is such an easy way to misconstrue ambition and muddy the waters on what ambition actually is. because I feel like ambition in and of itself, as I've said multiple times already, I feel it's very much internal. It's very much intangible. It's very much non-visible to the outside, because I feel like it's a process that happens within us. How decisions are made, how we want to achieve things, how we tackle the things we want to achieve, how we make decisions in our life, how those decisions affect us. All those thoughts are very much in connection with ambition, I feel, because ambition will, in my opinion, drive how you decide things, will drive how you interpret situations you face, the challenges you have in life, the opportunities you have. All those things are shaped by how ambitious you might be. But and because I feel like ambition is often overlooked, because if we jump back and look at the definition of ambition, it says that it's a strong wish to achieve something. And because I feel like we generally look at ambition and we think about those material things, those external things, we overlook the fact that ambition never has to be defined as something grand, amazing, or visible to everybody else around us. At no point has ambition ever been defined as such. But I feel like that's what we as a society hold ambition to be, what we want it to be, what we have defined it in our culture to be. Ambitious people are those that we guess that ambitious people are those that are successful, are those in the spotlight, that have had, everything go right for them. And I feel like that's what we oftentimes associate ambition with being. And I let out a little chuckle, because I feel like ambition doesn't have to mean that you're successful in life. This also propagates the idea that's quite incorrect in my opinion, that if you work hard, you're gonna achieve some form of financial success. And that's, I hope everybody is at least aware of this. We see it plenty often enough. And that is, hard work nowadays does not ensure anything. You oftentimes you see people being like, I worked hard, and therefore I deserve to be in this position of being within the 1%. I grant anybody, and I wish them success, and I don't wish on anybody's downfall or anything like that. But it's just propagating that idea that hard work equals great financial gain. And that's very outdated and classist in a sense, and you also disregard a lot of privilege people hold and possess, that I would say, a single mother working 3 jobs is working sometimes even harder than, let's say, somebody that's in crypto or something like that. Just to pick a random job, could be anything. So I feel like that in and of itself is a fallacy that we have to address, but that's a completely different topic for a different time. I assure you, one day I will most definitely talk about this subject. It's just not today, but if you're interested, stay tuned. A future episode will most likely discuss the topic of class and privilege in employment and also opportunities. But enough tangenting around. But let's go back to the subject I was talking about. I know plenty of ambitious people in the world that haven't achieved what they wanted to achieve, and it's not for lack of ambition. The people that work the hardest, that are the most ambitious, are oftentimes overlooked because of other, intrinsic and extrinsic factors that we oftentimes overlook. And that just touches on a lot of other things, such as discrimination and sexism and all these different things that we face in situations that are often linked with ambition, that is, jobs and education. But I feel like we have to be able to disconnect the concept of ambition with success. Those two things should be completely separate things, and that only successful people are ambitious, because that's just not the reality of the situation. Because ambition can be hard work, as I've said. Wanting and doing and continuing to persevere throughout hardship and struggle, that is most definitely ambition. And oftentimes that's not rewarded by society in general, because I can't even really tell you why, because so many things happen and sometimes things just don't work out. That's just the norm of things. Oftentimes things just do not work out. It's very rare for somebody to have everything going in their favor. And that just touches on the fact that what I'm talking about, it's just not about only ambition. It's much more conceptual than just ambition. It's much more multi-layered. There are multiple facets to what we're trying to look at. And I feel like what we want when we talk about ambition, and that's what I feel like I want to touch on, is ambition doesn't have to look a certain way. Ambition isn't a one-size-fits-all piece of garment, let's say. Ambition is much more a web of different facets and different ways we face our reality and the decisions we make and how we try to achieve things. All these layers coming together and that interlocking web of pretty much everything that is involved in your decision-making process. I feel like I've just overcomplicated what I'm trying to say, and that happens a lot, I feel, when you're talking about these, like, intangible concepts that dictate a lot of our life without us really thinking about them. But what I want to say, and I don't want to complicate this all too much, is that ambition comes in many facets. It comes in many forms. It comes in many different interpretations. And we're often told that we have to be ambitious. But the ambition people are talking about will not always match up with our own definition of what it means to be ambitious. Okay, I've talked a lot, but I've not said much. I just want people to know that you don't owe anybody a demonstration of your ambition. Work towards your own goals for yourself and believe in your inner strength. And don't let society's expectations for you dictate how you approach your own future, because you're not doing it for them. You're doing it for yourself. But that's enough inspirational mumbo jumbo from my side. I hope you enjoyed my little comeback from my so-called hiatus. Hopefully I'll be back to you with another episode in just a short 2 to 3 weeks. Hopefully I'll have something out by then. I definitely have a couple of scripts laying around for very interesting topics about friendships and parasocial relationships. So be excited for that. But with all of that, I'm signing out. That was cringe. Hope to see you back for the next episode. Stay safe out there, folks. See you next time.